gentlemen, are Death from Above 19, I don't know, whatever, you read the caption. Are they slop or not? 1, what is slop? 2, we're going to go over how to detect it. 3, how much of the catalog is slop or otherwise. 4, if they're talented regardless. And then finally, we're going to use it to figure out if you and or others are going to think they're slop or not and why. Let's go. So the music matrix from 0 to 11, we have energy and or intensity. And then from the bottom here, 0 to 10, we have catchiness and or memorability, or how iconic the whole song is, not one riff, the whole song on average. So if the whole song on average is at least a 7 catchy and it's lower energy, it's called pop. If it's at least a 7 catchy and it's higher energy, it's called rock. If it's not at least a 7 catchy, it gets called slop. It gets called garbage. But you might be a fan of that genre and go, actually, this band is a blank, 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 blank. To everyone else, it's slop. You can have your words, but everyone else thinks it's bad. Now, energy, it's easy to detect, right? 0 to 3 is music that makes you want to wind down for the night, go to bed, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. Now, from 4 to 7, that's where you're dancing, moving, grooving, getting the things going. You know, maybe background music at a chill, like get-together party. This is like mosh pit, rave, EDM, metal, like sprinting, very intense. You know what that is, right? People fighting, stuff like that. Combat sports. But how do we detect catchiness? This is a little more subtle, right? So now we know what slop is. It's less than a 7 in terms of catchiness. And I know we're getting to death from above, right? But we just need to, break this down for you so you know what's happening, y'all. Okay, that's the point, y'all. You need to see it, y'all. Okay, so here we got predictability. This is our biggest bang for the buck in terms of things that let us get a good gauge for catchiness, right? So predictability, if something's completely corny, it's pretty much guaranteed to be slop. If something's completely incoherent on the other end, it's guaranteed to be slop. If something's in the middle between balanced, which is Back in Black AC/DC, or like zany, for example, Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, or it's in the middle, it's in the sweet spot, like Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses, it's in the money zone in terms of predictability. There might be something that's new and exciting, something that's old and familiar and that people like, and it comes together in a way that's right in the sweet spot, and boom, you get a smash hit. But that's the thing. Being in the money zone, you could have something that's completely zany and sucks, and something completely formulaic that sucks, and together it gets you in the money zone, but then it still sucks. It's still slop. So being in the money zone does not guarantee a hit, but, you now have a chance, maybe 1 in 3 that's going to be total bad, 1 in 3 stuff that's just for fans of that band or that genre, and 1 in 3 that is for everyone. It's undeniably good. So now that we know what slop is, less than a 7 catchy, how to detect it, we have a good gauge for figuring that out, right? Now we get to go to Death from Above 1979, their catalog. This is a ratio of the quality and how much there are individual songs in general. For example, here we have an OnlyFans model. We have an OnlyFans model here. OnlyFans model is where there's very low amount of hit songs that are undeniable, right? Hit songs are ones where they come on the radio. It doesn't matter who you are. If you've ever heard the band before, you go, oh, that's good. You're listening to it. If it's something that's for fans keep it on the radio and go, I love this song. If you don't like that genre or that band and it comes on, it's to the point where it's not catchy enough that you let it play. You go, I'm going to skip next thing. I'll find another channel. I'll find another TV channel, whatever the heck. Or if it comes on a playlist, you click skip. You go to the next song. It's not catchy enough, but a fan might still like it. Duds or slop is where even fans go, we don't like that. The fans don't like it. So this is for everyone. This is for fans, and this is for no one, right? And so this is an OnlyFans model. Think Frank Zappa, Slayer, or Motorhead. These people maybe have 1, 2 hits, arguably. And they also don't have a lot of music that no one listens to. It's almost entirely music that fans will like, but is still not catchy enough for most people. Here is a hit or quit. We've got Queen, we've got Weezer. They have a lot of hit songs, things that no one's skipping on the radio. They go, wow, this is really good. Or it's stuff that everyone's skipping on the radio, even the fans, right? That's a very polar, right? This is bipolar. This is not polar. This is just whatever. I mean, you could say, what does unipolar even mean? Polar, this is so stupid. This is so stupid. I just realized that they said we had a unipolar moment after the fall of the Soviet Union in terms of foreign policy. That doesn't even make any sense. Unipolar? Pole has 2 ends. That's the whole point. You take a pole from your yard, look, 2 ends. That's the point. Unipolar. Uni means 1. How can you have a single end to a pole? No. So this is bipolar, but that's also redundant. Bipolar. It's a pole. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally misunderstanding the term. To me, that just sounds redundant. You would just say this is polar and this is not. Anyways, this is an even catalog, right? It's like 3 albums are great. Like everyone loves them, undeniable. Like Led Zeppelin, like 3 albums worth of dang across all their songs. If you count it up, are there like 30 songs where like these are really, really good? Yeah, maybe 30 songs where fans are like, these are good, but clearly not everyone's going to like it, but the fans are going to like it. And then 30 songs where even the fans go, yeah, I'm skipping that, right? Nine Inch Nails, Led Zeppelin, things like that. So now we actually get to Death from Above, 1979. And this is the thing. When we look at poor old Death from Above here, their catalog, it does not hold up. It does not hold up. Their catalog is less than 50-50, right? There's not a lot of, they have a very cool sound, but their songwriting, they either don't have the discipline, they end up being like Muse and or Royal Blood, except they don't have the songwriting of Muse and Royal Blood. Muse and Royal Blood look more like this, or they look a little bit like this or that. Muse and Royal Blood have lots of music that's just undeniably catchy, right? And so that's where we get an interesting thing. Because now we look at, but you might go, well, Death from Above, yeah, their catalog might not be great, but they're really talented. And that's the thing. They have a really good brand, or, medium or good, medium good. I said they have a great brand. Never mind. They have a great brand. They do. The aesthetics, the stage design, the album covers, the historical impact, the present impact. It's good. But no one's talking about Modern Guy in that album. And I listened to it right when it first came out. I was like, oh, I like this song. It's really good. But then it kind of doesn't go anywhere. And the song doesn't land the best. And then the other songs on the record aren't that good. The songwriting's just not there, the discipline. If they would have had a producer, someone who's not in the band, listening to it and going, oh, this, that's what's really catchy. Play that up, play that up, play that up, right? Refine, play that up, refine, right? They would say with Michael Jackson, I don't know if this is true, but he would you'd write like 100 songs for an album, and then you would like chop it down to 40, then you'd refine those, chop it down to 20, and then you'd chop it down again, and you just have like 10 songs for the album or something, right? That's that idea. That's a lot more work. Clearly, you don't need to always do that, but I think they don't seem to be a band who ever did that. Motorhead, I like Motorhead. They don't seem to be a band that ever did that, ever, right? And so the brand is good. The musicianship, this is actually not musicianship in terms of can they play their instruments. It's when people listen to the musicianship of these artists on display on the songs, does it inspire them? Wow, I need to pick up my instrument. I need to learn that riff. That's really cool. Yes. So they do have that. Oh, that's a really cool sound. I want to emulate the guitar sound and write my own song. Yes, 1,000%. So green. But their songwriting is lacking. This is where we get to the problem, because people who just primarily care about musicianship and branding, they're going to say they're great, they're amazing. But people who don't care about musicianship or branding and just care about the actual quality of the songs, if they're catchy, they're going to say this band's not good at all. They have 1 or 2 songs I really like, but the rest are bad. You're going to get high level of controversy, people disagreeing about it. So that's the problem. Do you see what I'm saying, right? And so now when we go back to the overall macro chart, let's see what happens, because where does a band rank overall? Their catalog can be one place, their catalog can be another. But people, you're going to realize back on that chart with the catalog audit, almost all of those bands get called good bands, and they're known as good because they have at least, let's say, 10 songs. Their top 10 are good, right? Their top 10 are catchy, even if their average catalog is bad, right? And so the question is here, when people think of Death from Above and they remember the songs they remember, which are the ones that they liked, what are those songs and how good are they, right? So for me, I said Modern Guy, my favorite song by them, Keep It Real Dumb, Freeze Me is really good, Little Girl, Nomad. See, but the thing is, you can see the catchiness gets down pretty quick, right? Romantic Rights, like it's a 5, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. These are all clearly in the slop zone in terms of catchiness. And there's 1-9, Freeze Me's 1-9. That's one like potentially could have been a super hit. Like a 9 and a 10 is so catchy that you're like, wow. Like, but they don't have more than a couple of those, right? Like System of a Down has way catchier music, and usually the more intense you get, the harder it is to keep the catchiness. You typically tend to see something like this happen with what's easy to write. If you're trying to write the catchiest music possible, it's usually pretty easy in the 4 to 7 range. But the instant you try and get more intense than that, it gets really hard to keep the catchiness. So people end up compromising on catchiness and to get more intensity. Or if you want to get lower energy, it's really hard to keep it still catchy without having, some sort of being upbeat, which is that kind of 4 to 7 energy range. So let's say sleepy, upbeat, and violent. Sleepy, upbeat, violent, right? Upbeat is tends to be the easiest place to get catchiness. And so the thing is, this is where you can see this is more of an inefficiency because they're in the upbeat range, low at the top. But if I'm looking at the average of these songs, there are 7 on energy, which is upbeat at the top of it, right? And then upbeat, borderline violent, right? And then a 6.8 in terms of catchiness, which would put them, barely beneath the slop line. So for some other people, they might, just be benefit of the doubt, only think of the top 5 songs, that puts them over, right? But here's the thing, they're about here, right? And if you're going with that pattern, you would say it's harder to do this, right? Or wait, what was I saying? Oh no, the more energy it is, the harder it is to be catchy. So you'd expect if you go up in terms of energy and intensity, which System of a Down is more intense than 7, they're usually about, let's say, an 8 or a 9 over the top 10 songs, right? Then you'd expect it to be as catchy or less. Because after a 7, you expect it to go back, right? 7s, you can still be like up from 4 to 7. It's pretty easy to be, not pretty easy, but it's more common to see the 10s and the 9s up here. And so you'd expect you're going back and in, right? But we start kind of here at like a little bit past the slop line at kind of this upper punk energy level. And instead, System of a Down's like over here. Why is System of a Down catchier? Why should System of a Down be catchier? They shouldn't, right? And so that sounds like you did not put time into your songwriting. So most people are going to consider them. I like Royal Blood. I like Muse. I like a lot of these modern rock bands, but I don't like Death from Above, or they have one song on my playlist. That's going to be most people. So this whole thing was about predicting, are people going to consider them slop? And if so, why? And who? Right? I think the average rock listener is probably going to consider them slop. Someone who's really is not as sensitive to catchiness and doesn't care, then they're not going to care, right? If you're just really a fan of that style, okay. But here's the thing. They're in this zone where typically you can see people. This is the reason it actually works this way too, in terms of popularity. If you're going to be in this 4 to 7 zone, and you're just going to be not as catchy as you could be, because there's a lot of songs that are in that upbeat energy range that are really catchy. People are just not going to listen to that. They're going to listen to this, right? And then if people wanted even higher energy from you and they want the metal energy, well, then they can just get the same catchiness but higher energy, right? But if they wanted something that's upbeat energy and you're there, well, they want something that's catchier than that. Unless they've ran out and they've listened to all this music and they need a break from it, and so they're going all the way back into the slop zone, right? See, this is your problem, right? Because metal band's going to be up here, but there seems to be this kind of relationship where it gets pretty hard, and so there's not a lot of catchy music that's up here, right? There's like Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue. There's maybe, what was I going to say? Like, I don't know, just good System of a Down songs, right? And they get up here, but there's not much of that, right? There's Duality by Slipknot, maybe, and you could say maybe that's an 8. But still, like, there's not much stuff that gets up in that range. And so a lot of metal fans, if you're going to want things at this energy level, it's almost exclusively behind this line, right? The slop line. It's going to be in the slop zone. And likewise, a lot of anything that's like really soft, it's really hard for that stuff to be really catchy unless it's like, it's literally Miles Davis. It's like jazz. Unless it's really good jazz, it's really just low tempo, and that's the reason why it's lower intensity, is because the tempo is so spaced out, and that's how it goes, right? But yeah, so it's really interesting. You do see, for sure, you see this kind of trend where it goes like here and there. It's kind of like, it's almost like this, like, it's like a trapezoid. It's almost like a trapezoid, yeah, in terms of what do you expect. So that's the funny thing is, at some point I want to put together a whole database with tons of people ranking songs where they go. And so then what I'm expecting is we're probably going to see something like this line here, solid line from like 4 to 7, back down. Some sort of parabola, pointy parabola type of thing, right? Like that, pointy parabola. It's almost like a ball. You throw it up and then it falls back to earth, right? You launch a rocket, right? And then when things get up here, it's probably going to be pretty astonishing. And that's probably going to be what's notable. Because it's probably not as worth... You could probably come up with pop songs. People will probably be able to do this, pop songs that are low energy and really catchy. But it's not... I don't think pop fans here even want that. And there won't be that much demand for it. I think this is hard to do. This stuff in this upper triangle, that's still rock, but also, let's say, right, like something like here. This stuff is hard to do, but it's actually going to be like impressive when people do it. So when things get up in this upper kind of triangle here, it's really rare. That's a really rare zone, and I think that's kind of like my goal. A lot of times in making music is to try and get stuff up in here. That's where you'll see, like maybe like Enter Sandman's not that intense, but there's maybe other Metallica songs that are pretty catchy that are kind of up there in that range. But even then, I don't know how catchy are they, right? Yeah. But you do see this, right? Because when you get up here, is where people start to go hard rock, right? And when you're in this hard rock zone, they have to pretty quickly compromise on catchiness because almost no one makes those songs. Maybe there's something inherently about that makes it kind of hard. I would be surprised because I think there's a weird balance between the predictability and the zaniness. And when you're going just faster and faster and faster, which tends to be the case, right? It gets harder and harder to keep things in a coherent plot, but also still surprising without going off the rails or becoming completely bland. I think that's the really hard balance of increasingly intense music, wanting to stay catchy, right? So yeah, that's my prediction. Anyways, Death from Above. But I think that's the thing. So if you don't care about how catchy the songs are, then you're going to love them. If you really just care about brand the most, then you're going to love them. If you're a musician and you think they're really cool and you like the brand and you might be willing to overlook the lack of the songwriting. So that's what I think. What do you think? Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.